There were some that were talking about their concerns that these attacks on this militia group might spark an escalation. Is that what we're seeing here?
I think so. I think it's clear what Iran wants. Iran wants the United States out of Iraq. And so you're seeing these attacks against bases that are not being well defended by the Iraqi security forces for a number of reasons. Drawing a retaliation by the United States, we attacked 5 different sites, one in Syria, that killed a number of Iraqis, which really turned the Iraqi populace largely against the United States. There's been a movement within the Iraqi parliament to demand the withdrawal of U.S. forces. And so unfortunately, Iran is playing its cards rather well. And as I said, its aim is to drive America out of Iraq. And the way it's going to do it is to force the United States to overreact, send more forces into the country, which is going to be rejected by a lot of Iraqis, and probably launch more attacks to get some kind of retaliation that will force the new government, when or if it's forced, to require the Americans to leave.
To your point, I was just going to read a few headlines to you. This from Foreign Policy: Iraq prepares to evict U.S. forces. This from the AP: coalition of Iraqi forces calls for U.S. troops to withdraw. But those aren't headlines from today. They are headlines from March and August of last year.
Yep.
So there was already this momentum building. How does this play into it? I mean, we're hearing a lot of calls, as you just said. Where do you see this?
Well, what's different today from then are the riots that have taken place, because you have a majority of Iraqis who want jobs, they want dignity, and the government is not delivering. It's corrupt. In fact, there's really no government right now. The president is on the verge of trying to appoint a prime minister. And so I think conditions today are far worse than they were 8 or 9 months ago, and they're going to continue to deteriorate, and there's going to be increased pressure, I believe, by Iraqis and the Iraqi government to force the Americans to leave. Now, what happens next? Will there be an escalation by the Kateb Hezbollah, who are the Iraqi militias that are dominated by Iran? Will the United States retaliate some other place? Remains to be seen. But this is a powder keg, and it's a powder keg that could explode at the same time impeachment hearings are likely to move to the Senate. So you've got a crisis here, you've got multi-crises there. Look at Syria. You have 250,000 refugees who have been thrown out with the latest assault. Lebanon is in chaos. It's got a cash crisis. The Middle East, Netanyahu is trying to get the Knesset to vote him a vote of immunity. The situation is not only topsy-turvy, the situation is really filled with greater risk than I think in any time in the past couple of years.
And you didn't mention Kim Jong-un, so it's not a good start.
You mean the masked man on a white horse looking like the Lone Ranger?
I was just going to say, it's not a good start for the Trump administration. Interestingly enough, Scott Anderson, a former legal advisor for the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, says this U.S. overreach is exactly what Iran wanted, which I think is what you're saying as well. And he feels as though they've stepped into a trap. The Trump administration has once again made the United States the focus of Iraq's ire. Prior to that, as you mentioned, there were protests in the streets. A lot of people disenchanted with Iran's footprint there in Iraq. How does that change things? If
you go back to Vietnam, American leadership has been often too ignorant of the culture, conditions, and lacked sufficient knowledge of the circumstances. And indeed, launching the retaliatory strikes the other day against the Iraqi militias, exactly what Iran wanted. Now, I understand from the position of the Pentagon, they want to protect American servicemen, they want to deter Iran, and they want to show that we can do something. But I don't think anybody thought through the consequences. And the consequences are Iran has laid a trap, and we have fallen right through it. And this is going to continue, and the result will be great pressure, this time for American forces to leave. And nobody can predict the future, but my guess is that we're likely to see a withdrawal, if not a complete withdrawal, substantial withdrawal of American forces, even though there are a number of Marines that are being sent in to reinforce the embassy to help safeguard it. Well, it's something we're going to keep our eye on. Thanks so much for your insights. Really, Mike, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well.